Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, people, welcome on my channel. Today I will show you a miniature modification project called Conversion. Based on the Games Workshop's universe, Warhammer 40k started many years ago that almost made me abandon the hobby at some point. Obviously for time-consuming concerns, but also for a lack of confidence in my own abilities to achieve such build, standing since at the very top of my so-called pile of shame. While I show you the images, let's talk about the process of the making and evoke the lore of this bad boy and inspirations and models influencing its present look or even its existence. At the beginning, I was not aware of how the final product that I thank you for watching right now would look exactly. If you want to do some by yourself, this is the first error to avoid. Once a part is done, it can become very difficult or even impossible to add whatever afterwards without cutting or damaging your work. A sculpture is just a three-dimension drawing, so you should be able to make a plan. That said, I'm not the best by far, and when I began, not able to do it at all. But the carving itself made me progress a lot to a point where I think it's interesting to show to you guys. While during a lot of time, it were an almost unachievable project of mine. So definitely dare to try. I can't tell you for real how many times it took me, but it would not necessarily be indicative since I literally learned on it. I just wanted to add that very good looking cloak from an old Games Workshop's miniature of a big bad cow guy. Then I cut his left leg to give him a more theatrical pose and put on a kilt. Of course inspired by many Space Marines, but secretly to hide the leg I was not about to sculpt at the time. But guess what? I was not better at kilts, and the first shot was really an approximation. But that led me to accept to rework everything until it suits the expectations. As said before, it's like a drawing. You can erase and do as pleased and virtually always can repair and improve. Once you see how to do the job starts the long and sometimes painful, even despairing grind of just doing it over and over. The more is done, the more old it gets the old parts. Probably 5 or 6 different versions of his right hand weapon were made before accepting to stop on a decent result. The wolf head used as his hood is the third. I lost a lot of time like that if I don't count the precious learning coming from it. There is no big secret within that work. I basically used kinda average process. For now it's not painted. You can tell what is green is epoxy resin. The yellow is also but from another brand. White is plastic card. Gray is plastic pieces from Games Workshop miniatures. And what is metallic or painted is metal. Also, there is metal you can see in the form of small metal bars running through, stuck in dedicated pierced holes like a skeleton, part as a guide like a sketch for drawing, part as a literal skeleton, because the epoxy resin can be fragile and also not necessarily stick well, so I fix it with superglue and form approximately what I will later carve with a small tool like a file, a cutter, a nail, or anything that suits the job. Cutter and X-Acto knife are my favorite for now because it's very precise, allow you to work fast and leave a way better texture than the file, while that last can be your best ally, notably on harder materials. Plastic card is better than epoxy for small details, especially where they stand for themselves, if I speak correctly, like here claws or teeth not touching anything but their base. But epoxy is way easier to carve, feel holds well, and have a pretty good resistance once there's enough amount of it. That said, be aware that only the rubbing of your fingers can damage it, so be careful and always keep some endable points on your miniature. On mine there, it's the wall side of the base if you don't count the dolmen's entry. Also the missile launcher is made to be manipulated. The bad worker blame his tools, but you definitely want at least decent gear, or you will just adding to the difficulty. Best ones are probably those for watchmakers or jewel crafters, but I don't have some, and instead put in use the small files from Games Workshop, a manual drill that also hold needles, different kind of X-Acto knives, and a pair of flat pliers that also cut wire. Those are the minimum, and as I saw a lot of hobbyists did, you will probably end up with a whole arsenal of carving tools, with some even made by yourself. Also, especially if you want to use metal like me, but anyways to carve holes, you want to have a rotary tool, or be ready to lose a lot of time cutting with a knife like I did first. A metal cutting saw is really not bad, but you have to cut a line, and that can be problematic and make you destroy details or even parts. So, avoidable, but making work so fast and comfortable that rotary tool is a must-have for me. So that's pretty much it. Have a good idea of what you want to achieve with, if possible or needed, some preparative work and documentation, like in my case, wolf pictures, for example. Good tools and an amount of time in adequation of your current skills and abilities. Being a decent drawer helps me the most, but definitely look within you and find that inner strength. It's not because I made it that way that you can't make it yours. Take your time, step by step. Efforts should pay. If you have trouble with shaking hands, buying a vise can be an option, but even with one, you will probably want to learn to block one hand against another, holding the miniature in one hand, guiding it on the tool, letting just your fingers move, or if you have it in the vise, then just block the quake with your offhand, and later even help to draw while job is done. Also, don't hesitate to simplify things. Like for the fur, I carved in a block, but you as well can craft a lot of hair and glue it. Maybe even use some real ones if the result is good. Why not? Just an example here, but that brings us smoothly from what is used as tool and materials to the references and the inspirations that I and you can use. Since I talked a lot about crafting part and very little about the easier part of kit bashing, often the first one, which is the use of miniature parts or even objects as core and or texture. As you maybe know already by recognizing some of the parts, this Space Wolf is an old depiction of Logan Grimnar from Games Workshop, wearing the cloak of Arkham, a modified Terminator helm on his belt, a heavy flamer converted with a piece of bolter placed on the gauntlet gun of the Grey Knight's Terminator leader's left arm, the shield protecting the gun and his side being made with small shield that originally goes on Grey Knight's pauldrons, I believe, but also could come from some Britannian parts I can't remember well. Cartridge and power cables feeding left weapon are made with the metal tail of an obsolete Tyrannid prince. His whirlwind missile launcher is just the side of a regular one of regular Terminators. Rocks on the base are from the Vampire Count's Zombie Dragon's own base. The teleportation device behind him is one currently used by loyalist space marines, and the last piece and not least is an old orc's bracelet adorning his right hand's energetic gauntlet. I don't really count it as a piece, but it stands on two official monster bases melted in resin, but letting appear big enough part so in one glance you can tell it's a fair to play size. And even some other stuff ended up sunking into it like sand or wood, unseenable now. The coolness itself of the Games Workshop miniature helped me through the process of starting and finishing that conversion. But mine is double-edged, carrying you on the steez, but bound you to respect intricate rules, like in my example, the wind orientation told by the cloak. I was also mainly inspired by some Space Wolves showed in a Games Workshop book on how to paint miniatures, if I'm correct. The artists made them with kilts and missing armor piece, revealing their big muscles, swinging 200 weapons, and still to this day, some of the best Space Wolves out there. Obviously, the Golden Demon entries made me dribble and jealous, but even some less well-made stuff can have something really unique and great to show, to the point of even a bad work can be at a few techniques from a good and even great result. It's up to you to decide the balance between accepting to stop if damage are too much or continuing spending time, but if you can, try to not throw anything. You could be surprised of what your some years later yourself can do. Plus, as a player, it's always great to have bonus stuff painted for special scenarios or make player friends and relatives as any tabletop game. I insist, don't throw away anything. Any hobbyist making his ideas come to life is a source of inspiration. Unfortunately, I can't name every artist who ever inspired me, but let's evoke the main ones for today's subject. The first, and maybe the most important, was a little girl from my first school years. I was something like 5 years old and she was at least 1 year old less than me. We were in the playground drawing some stick wounds on the wall, and I still feel that admiration that passes through us kids that day, for she had processed to draw one on a bicycle pedaling. Maybe she just wanted bike, but for me she is the overskilled genius who made me want to improve myself in that discipline. I would sometimes not work but never leave. I started sculpting, cheering up myself with my already worked drawing on Games Workshop advice, since they were not producing enough model to fill all the codex choices, or just for the flamboyance of having unique models. During first years, without internet, they were my main model. Some artists in the company may be more than others, but in the end, it's really a teamwork between all of us sharing dreams. At the present time for the video, I feed from Google Image and YouTube mostly. I Talking about inspiration, get on Miscast channel is a big part of my attempt here to do my part of the show. If you occur to don't know that guy, then do yourself a favor and have a check. Also on YouTube, I like a lot Trovarian miniatures for the good counsels, and they are for now my favorite hobbyists in the platform. I mention it last because it's a bit obvious, but while you can learn at the museum, the real original source of inspiration is always nature and the infinity of life's adaptation and matter movement. Now I told you about the kit bashing part used, the process and my models. The last part is the lore that will dictate you even more what to do, hopefully worth the price. The most scholarly of you should have recognized an Horus Heresy Wolf Guard from the 13 Great Company of the Space Wolves chapter of Space Marines. They ended lost in a warp after a complex set of events that I encourage you to read from the Black Library. My depiction may not be canon since I don't know the whole official story myself, if it were even possible. To be short, the pitch of my Space Wolf is they are supposed to be living remains of the original army, but corrupted by the warp after living such time in it. Surprisingly still loyalist and even breed on a lost planet within the Imperium. Obviously, the Inquisition will declare and excommunicate the instant learning about their existence. They were organized into a literal savage wolf pack. Practical in roleplay terms, having them in the warp allows me to pop anywhere to its borders and play ally with both sides though. I will not expand too much on their background today, it's not very seriously built already, and it were before all those detailed books from the Black Library. I already have some good ideas on how I want to paint it, and I hope you are as impatient as me to see the result in the next video. By the way, don't hesitate to subscribe on my channel, like the video, and tell me what you think in the comment section. I will not be able to release a lot of content for now since I still have to work to make a living, but anyways, this sculpture is special to me as the pinnacle of my Inner Shift project. So finishing it is not a question, especially now I feel the relief of having the first part done. I really hope that you like my work, that I thank you again and very much for watching. Next part is coming as fast as I can, so until next time, peace everyone.